Everyone to the meeting, and I ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Thank you. Chair Guay.
Present.
Chair Regent Balducci. Here. Regent Bloom.
Here.
Regent James. Present. Regent Jappanen. She's not joined us yet, but is expected. Regent McCarthy. Here. Regent Porth. He has not joined us, but expected. Student Regent Sanchez. He is joining us online momentarily. Regent Santiago is expected to join us virtually as well. Regent Stewart, absence is noted. Regent Wright, here. Regent Yang, here. And our ex officios, Professor Cunningham,
here.
Professor Sasanker.
I'll be in person in a moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Bartolomeo, absence is noted. Commissioner Giuttani, absence is noted. Commissioner O'Keefe, absence is noted. Commissioner Russell Tucker, absence is noted. Chief Workforce Officer Valeries, absence is noted. Undersecretary Casamento.
Present.
Thank you. And our presidents, John Maduco, absence is noted. I believe his Chief of Staff will be joining us momentarily. Thank you. To correct that, President Maduco will be joining virtually. His Chief of Staff, Tom Yelich, has joined us as well. Interim President Smith. Here. President Toro. Here. Interim President Singh. He will be joining virtually. President Klonowski. Here. President Ismaili. Here. Chair Guay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The agenda is adopted. I'll now ask the Secretary of the Board, Pam Helene, to manage the public comment portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Chair Guay. In addition to the one presenter we have today, we have received one communication from him, which has been forwarded to the regents in advance of this meeting. And in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act guidelines, the communication was posted on the CSCU website immediately prior to the meeting start time. And with that precursor, I'm going to bring our first presenter in from the lobby. Hold on, please. Colin, can you test your audio for me?
Yes, I can. Do I sound good?
Just a little louder, please.
Okay. How about this level?
That's
good?
Perfect. You ready?
Perfect. Thank you.
Your 3 minutes may begin.
Good morning. I am Colin Palma, a graduate intern at CCSU. I'm a graduate intern at CCSU, and as you have seen the document that I've submitted for record, I come before the board to further explain what I mean by investing into the graduate internship program. The graduate internship program is one of the best in the state and in the country when graduates are prepared and finding employment to their desired field. In a future meeting, I'd love to present the exact numbers on how many graduates of this program do fulfilling and prestigious work in many campuses worldwide. However, there is a common link between these world-shaping graduates, and that is CCSU and the CSCU network of colleges. While everyone who signed this document loves the program and is so thankful for the opportunity, the unfortunate truth of the program is that it's becoming less and less financially competitive as the years go by. UConn's graduates is to offer benefits and a higher stipend than CSCU while waiving the cost of the degree and paying their fees at a negotiated amount. Some of those benefits, which I've gotten from the UConn Grad Union website, is childcare reimbursement, confidential free counseling, emergency funds for short-term loans of up to $2,000, a higher yearly stipend of almost $9,000, only a 20-hour full-time work week versus our 35 hours, a visa fee reimbursement for international students, and health insurance, which includes family plans and spousal plans. There are many more benefits, and I implore the board to compare our program versus UConn's further on their own through their official website that I have sent to Secretary Helene. With this list of benefits that UConn offers over CSU, it has made our program only available and accessible to those who have an outside support network and or are independently wealthy. As I got the signatures for petition, each signer's story would make anyone sick to their stomach. I have stories of signers choosing to pay rent over food, signers skipping doctor's appointments, signers losing their insurance, and signers having to go to weekly to the food bank. So I come before you not to guilt you, but to plead to you that this board reinvest some more into our internship programs and to better invest in the future of CCSU and CSCU's programs. I thank you all for your time. While this may not be the first time you've met me, while this may be the first time you've met me, this will not be the last time you hear from me. I'm Colin Palma, 2024-2026 graduate intern at CCSU Student Center, and I hope the Board of Regents will choose to continue to expand their investment in graduate internship inside the CSCU network. Thank you for your time. I yield the floor.
Colin?
Thank you, Colin.
Colin, thank you for your time. We have received your documents. I read through them, and I saw that the last revision was completed 32 years ago. So I think it's a fair ask that we revisit this. Our commitment is to look at it. The outcome of that will be based upon an assessment. Thank you so much for coming before us, Colin. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comment.
Thank you, Secretary Helene. I'd like to turn it over now to Chancellor Cheng for his comments.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Gui. And I want to thank everyone here at Eastern for welcoming the board today, welcoming all of our leadership and administrators. Thank you to President Ismaili for, again, hosting us. It's a beautiful campus. It's a wonderful institution, and we really love being here. The semester is off to a great start across the whole system. Energy is great. Attitudes are great, a lot of activity. I've been on several campuses in the past month and just love being around all the students, love being around just the activity that is generated. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why the energy is so good is because enrollment across the system is up. And we haven't been able to say that in a long time. It feels good. It feels really, really good to say that. And that is due to so many different reasons. But I'll give you some statistics first. Enrollment for the system is up 4.2% across the entire system. 4.2%. That is a big deal. By institution, enrollment is up. At Central, by 2.9%. At Eastern, by 9.5%. Southern, 6.3%. Western is up just under a point, pardon me, and CT State Community College, all 12 campuses, is up just under 4%. This is a really, really big deal, and it is because so many of our people for many years now have been working incredibly hard. They're out there recruiting, they're out there in the schools, they're out there in the communities, they are out there at each other's institutions trying to encourage transfer within the system. They are doing a great job, they're really hustling, they're really grinding, and this is not the kind of thing we can flip a switch on, unfortunately. We're battling regional trends, we're battling national trends, but it is so, pardon me, it is so, so gratifying to be able to praise all of you in the work that you have done. Other programs like the free tuition program at CT State, also known as PACT, has had a major, major impact. And that's because our legislature and our governor and this board had supported this kind of work. And so that is starting to really yield significant gains. The automatic admit program is another program that just got off the ground a couple of years ago. That too, I have some stats on that I want to share in a minute, but that too is a very impactful program. I don't know what happened. I guess I swallowed a frog on the way from Hartford to Willimantic. Another reason we have increased enrollment is that we have wonderful partners. Thanks, Marty. We have wonderful partners across the state. We really do. And we have two of our ex officio partners here, the commissioners and representing agencies. Kelly Valeris, our Chief Workforce Officer for the state. She's an incredible partner. We work with the Office of Workforce Strategy all the time. Kelly is a wonderful steward of this work. She is incorporating our institutions. She is connecting us to partners and industries and companies all the time, and that creates even more value for the type of educational experience we provide at CSCU. So thank you, Kelly, for that. We have our partnerships with the State Department of Education. We have our partnerships with the CTEC, the technical education area, and we have industry partners. We work closely with Hartford Healthcare. Hartford Healthcare is a literal partner, hand-holding partner with Eastern Connecticut State University in developing their nursing program, which is off the ground already, striking results already, developing a simulation lab. It is going to be massively impactful here. That doesn't happen without Hartford Healthcare. We're doing great work with Yale New Haven Health. We are working with Accenture, specifically at Capital Community College campus, Advanced CT, so many from manufacturing and business and IT across the state. It's a big deal, and it's really starting to come together, and it's really working, and I think there's so much for us to feel good about. Another item I want us to really understand and feel good about, the CAP, the Connecticut Automatic Admissions Program, which allows students to apply for our 4 CSUs and a few privates with just the click of a button. That program has already, we just opened the program cycle a few days ago, already 7,700 individuals have been offered admission to our schools and other schools across the state. 7,700. We just opened it up, and they're already being granted admission to our schools before September is even over. This is a massive boost. It is a massive thrust forward for a lot of students, frankly, who may not think that post-secondary education and higher education is part of their journey, part of their futures. We're already putting it in front of them and saying, hey, come to us. So there's so much to feel really good about. A few updates. Last month, this board, in a really progressive move, which I think is being well received across our system, especially at CT State Community College, asked for a restoration of student services. And so the team has been working diligently, and when I say the team, I mean the CT State Community College team, led by President John Maduco and his wonderful provost and all the team leaders here from CT State who do a great job on each and every campus. So I would like to ask President Maduco, who is joining us virtually today, to maybe give a brief high-level update on the progress of the restoration of student services. President Maduco, would you?
Yes, good morning, Chancellor, Chair Gway, Vice Chair James, Regents, esteemed colleagues, and guests, John Maduco, CT State President. So a real brief update per the resolution from our board last month. So I've charged our CFO and Vice President of Finance and Administration, Ms. Carrie Kelly, to work with our campus leaders to really kind of develop a pathway to collect the information, but also partner with our stakeholders across our campuses. And we're looking at this process through 5 lenses or 5 parts, right? So number one, I think is the most important part is the student voice, right? And really ensuring that we are addressing their needs. We've been utilizing for the past couple of years a really powerful holistic student support survey that we issue on an annual and semesterly basis to really ask our students, what are their challenges, what are their needs, how are they doing, right? So we're gonna leverage that data. 2, we have to recognize that no 2 academic years or semesters are the same. So the students we served a year ago are different than the students we serve this fall semester. So we're gonna look at the schedule of classes and assessing when our students are on our campuses and the offerings and services that they're leveraging. 3, we are stewards and proponents of shared and participatory governance. And we're going to work closely with our college senate led by Professor L. Vandermark to ensure that the elected representatives from across our campuses and functional areas are involved in this process. And specifically come next month during the CT State College Senate meeting, they have an opportunity to get their hands on what we've compiled and some of the remnants of the working draft of this plan. For working directly with our campus CEOs, who will be working with their local governance bodies and their local stakeholders to really assess the needs of the respective campuses. No two campuses are the same. And then the campuses will be tasked with ranking or prioritizing those respective student services needs based on the categories that were articulated in the resolution. And then the last part would be the financial cost and analysis led by our CFO to really cost out basically the aggregate recommendations in terms of services that are going to be restored by campus and overall across CT State. We're expediting this process. We will be ready to present and work with the committees, both the finance committee, but also the academic and student affairs committee of the board next month, and then continue this conversation and have recommendations in the draft plan to the Board of Regents next month, and obviously in November, where I think there might be some time carved out for CT State to further go into detail about the elements of the plan, the participants involved, but ultimately what will the estimated and measured impact look like in terms of the restorations of our services.
Thank you, President Maduco. That's super helpful and a really great example of how the board is leading, is driving the system forward to be student-facing, student-focused, and really concentrated on student impact at all times, and for us, and here as an example for you as the leadership, to move that work forward in a participatory, shared governance manner. So thank you greatly for that work, and we look forward to continued developments there. Appreciate that. The second item I'd like to add an update on is the ACT framework, that is access, completion, and talent, that was presented by Chair Gui to this board and given to us as leadership to work on. Again, this is work that has been happening, but now to establish a framework that really targets, concentrates, and focuses in a truly explicit way so that folks understand what we're doing, how we're doing, and why we are doing with incredible transparency. So President Toro will help me in this update because it does relate as well to the I would call it newly established, but we as a group of presidents and chancellor, we talk all the time, probably more than the presidents actually want to talk to me. That's okay. But we have to work all the time, and we do. This President's Council is extremely important. They convened on September 11th and September 24th to review a proposed framework for developing system-wide goals and key performance indicators for the ACT pillars. The framework included a preliminary analysis of each institution's strategic plans to identify common themes that would ensure alignment with accrediting requirements and governance structures. Okay, so again, the first step was to look at what was already established in each institution's strategic plan. We're not trying to recreate the wheel here. The President's Council is working to finalize those system-wide goals by next week and will provide an update to the system office. Initial campus discussions have begun, led by the presidents at each of their institutions, with further campus engagement strategies to come. A system-wide communication, along with a dedicated website to create as much transparency as possible, will be launched soon to keep everyone in the CSC community informed of the process. So the goal here really is to have all of this work come from the board, go through the Chancellor's office, work through each of our institutional leaders, and for those institutional leaders to work with their institutions to ensure alignment, to ensure buy-in, and to ensure transparency. And when we do that for all of the groups that are system-wide, whether it's academics or finance or enrollment or student affairs, we are going to create a continuum of communication, planning, and transparency that ultimately creates as much alignment and buy-in as possible. So I'd like for President Toro, who is a senior advisor to the Chancellor, to speak a little bit on the ACT work that is happening right now, but also on her leadership of the President's Council, which I'm very grateful for. President Toro?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chancellor. First of all, I think that it's a unique experience having the President's Council, because allow us to have difficult conversations, but at the same time allows us to talk about system-wide collaboration, to develop a strategic initiative that will help all of us innovate and move the system forward as one entity. And finally, it's a forum where we are sharing best practices from all the institutions. So this definitely is a step forward as a system, very positive step forward. And we have used the President's Council to work on the 3 pillars that were established by the Board of Regents in the last meeting: access, completion, and talent. We have developed a draft of 9 goals, 3 for each one of the pillars. We are in conversations, the Presidents. We have discussed those so far for some time, but we are academics as well. So we will continue the conversation tomorrow. And I will be sure that after 2 more hours of conversations, we will reach an agreement on those. And then from there, the goals will go to each one of the campuses for each president to work with their established shared governance structures within each campus to get the campus involved in the goals, but also to get the campus involved in the development of the key performance indicators for each one of the goals. We have started socializing the 3 pillars already with our teams. In the case of Central, we have socialized that already with the Senate, and in the State of the University speech this week, we framed the stage of the university around the 3 pillars. And my other colleagues has been discussing the 3 pillars with their campuses as well. So I can, and I am very happy to say that we are making very good progress. And by November 15th, we will have a finalized document for the board.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, President Torre. Thank you for your stewardship and leadership of the President's Group. And I didn't realize it was a 2-hour meeting, so I guess I will bring more coffee for all of us to make sure we get through that. But it is really great to watch all of the presidents come together selflessly and magnanimously to do work together. So I deeply appreciate all of you. An update on executive searches for the system right now. As we all know, the system has gone through a lot of change and will continue to go through significant amounts of change. And one of these areas is in the leadership. We've heard concerns over the number of positions this past year at both campuses and at the system level that have been interim. And I realize this is very discomforting and it might feel destabilizing, right? So we've taken some really significant steps forward to address that. We have great people in place in these roles right now as interims, and so I want to make sure I say that to everyone. We've got wonderful people, but it's important to fill those high-level roles as soon as possible. So to that end, I'm happy to report that we are making real progress with the following searches. The first is for the System General Counsel. That search is being chaired by Dr. Ainsley Diamond, who is an AVP of Academic Affairs for the system right now. And we are in the process of meeting finalists, and so that's been going very well. We are in the process of searching for the system's Chief Financial Officer. That search is being chaired by Vice Chancellor for System Affairs and Chief of Staff to the Chancellor, Jessica Paquette. And we are also about to meet finalists in that search, and so very happy about that. Our System Compliance Officer, that search is being chaired by AVP of Human Resources, Lori Lamb, and she has informed me that we will probably have finalists ready very soon for that final round of activity. and the president of Western Connecticut State University. That process has begun. A listening tour just took place with our search firm, which is Whit Kiefer for this round, and that search is being chaired by President Toro. Thank you again. We're really putting President Toro to work, by the way. So I'm very happy to have her with me in this journey, of course, with all the presidents. But there's been a listening tour. So maybe President Toro, you can just give us, again, a quick update on what that was like at Western those few days.
Again, thank you, Chancellor. It was a learning experience. We were able to hear from students, faculty, staff, alumni, members of the community about a number of things. First, what they think are the strengths of the institution and how we can, if you will, sell the institution to prospective candidates. Also, we were able to learn about what traits or characteristics the community would like to see in the next president. We also had the opportunity to learn what will define success for the next president and what are the challenges or any areas that they believe the institution can and should be doing better on. Let me say that the participation was very, very good. I can say that the community, Western community, is ready to work alongside of a new leader or a permanent leader. They want a permanent leader. That's clear. And so that is very refreshing. The next step, two other things. The next step in the process is to finalize the development of the leadership profile. The search firm is putting together a draft based on all the input we got. But the other thing that is very different about this search is that in other searchers, the search firm have developed the leadership profile without the involvement of the search committee. In this case, the search committee has been involved in the search since the very beginning, and has a very important role in the development of that leadership profile. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you again, President Toro. And I want to thank all of our search chairs, our search committee members. Searches are a lot of work, right? A lot of folks, apply to these kinds of positions, and they're highly qualified. And at the end of the day, it is a lot of work. So I'm really appreciative of our search committee members, our search committee chairs. And I want to thank the members of our board as well. Board members are involved in this process. And, folks have been meeting with finalists, and folks have been giving input. And so this is a process that is very inclusive, that has many touch points, and ultimately, I believe, will yield the strongest and the best leaders with a level of clarity and engagement that I think we will all feel good about. So speaking of engagement, quick updates on some partners that we have been working with across CSCU, NCHEMS and Social Impact Partners, SIP. And so we've talked about this at past meetings, and it's been kind of out in the ether. So I wanted to give a quick update on that. And I will ask Charlene Casamiento from the Office of Policy and Management to help me out with this in a second. But as many of you at our institutions and at our campuses probably know, NCHEMS has been working on behalf of the Office of Policy and Management on an analysis of our system that is trying to figure out, long story short, how can we continue to be better? How can we continue to look at our current operations, get stronger, get tighter, be better, and be forward-looking? Right? We have to constantly be striving to make progress. They've engaged many, many people at our institutions, at our campuses. The listening tours have been intense, they've been honest, they've been robust, And so what I'd like to do now is to ask Charlene to give a little more context from the OPM standpoint, because this work is being commissioned by the Office of Policy and Management, but it's certainly with our cooperation and with our partnership. So please, Charlene.
Thank you, Chancellor Chang. As part of the 24 and 25 biennial budget, OPM was provided ARPA funds to hire a higher education expert to conduct a study of CSU. OPM, in collaboration with CSU and the Chancellor, has contracted with NCHEMS, National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, who is known throughout the industry as an expert in that space. NCHEMS will recommend for consideration data-driven solutions that will position and scale CSU to meet projected student demand, to become more fiscally stable and operationally efficient, while improving student outcomes and meeting the workforce needs of the state of Connecticut. The project is anticipated to produce recommendations for improvement for CSU, for the state, and for students. We will be collaborating with the Chancellor and Board Chair Gway to schedule time for NCHEMS to share their recommendations for consideration in early December. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene. I really appreciate that. And Charlene has been great in terms of just being, again, a partner and advocate and a driver of this work. So we appreciate you, Charlene. So with Social Impact Partners, again, it's a really good partnership. And just to remind, we are working with Social Impact Partners, and they are providing their work pro bono, right? And this is high-level professional analysis consulting work, and we are receiving that work pro bono. It is valued at millions of dollars. We're very fortunate to have the relationships and to have the partnership and to have the help of the governor's office to make these connections as well. They too have been engaged across our campuses, across our institutions. I mean, literally, they have had hundreds of meetings and met with so many people, faculty, staff, administrators, presidents. They are getting an absolute 360 view and then some on what is going on at our institutions, challenges, concerns, opportunities, and what people are really thinking and feeling. And I think with Social Impact Partners, we hope to work with them as they help us evolve after their listening tour a holistic investment case for the system, right? We don't talk about enough, and I pledge to continue to do a better job of this. We don't talk about the great work and the impact of this system. Every institution, every department, every campus, every day, folks do magic out there, right? But we need to continue to push that bar even higher, level up even more. And SIP is going to help us to create an investment case, and the focus will always be on students, students, students. Right? This is a people business for us, but also for the people of Connecticut, and that's what we take very seriously. Another part of developing people, the healthcare task force was created by this board at a board meeting earlier. I can't remember if it was last month or the month before, but it is in development. We have asked President Maduco to lead that task force, and so President Maduco will give us a brief high-level update on the developments there.
Yeah, thank you, Chancellor Chang. Really excited and honored to lead this work and collaborate across our system and beyond. So first, really want to give a shout out to Dr. Ainsley Diamond, who brought to my attention that we've had a long-standing CSCU Healthcare Career Council, and that consists of faculty and administrators, and they sit on a treasure trove of data and outcomes that really break down our healthcare academic and programmatic portfolio across CSCU, right? So we definitely want to be efficient in this work. We have less than 90 days, but also avoid duplication. So that's one. I've brainstormed, and there's going to be 7 components of that, because Regent Gway, I remember you saying, John, you only have 7, there will be 7 members to this task force. So the approach will be, the task force will consist of members 2 internally and 5 externally. Per the blessings of Central's president, President Toro, and Southern's president, President Smith, they support me reaching out to Central's provost, who's our most senior provost within CSCU, and Southern's Dean of Health and Human Services, our most senior health dean within CSCU, to really co-lead the work group that's really responsible for overseeing and analyzing our academic portfolio and liaising and working closely with the CSCU Healthcare Career Council. The second group will be to leverage our Connecticut Department of Health, and obviously we are blessed to have DPH's commissioners serve as ex officio on our board. So working with Chancellor Chang will ensure that we will identify the most appropriate lieutenant or representative from DPH to really put a highlight on what are the quote unquote healthcare disparities within Connecticut, but also really giving us an opportunity to look at health policy in the state of Connecticut. Third work group, and she doesn't know this yet, but our esteemed colleague, Dr. Kelly Valieras, who was our Chief Workforce Officer, they've been doing just significant work at a state level, not only in the healthcare space, but obviously for all of workforce development. So again, to avoid duplication, really leveraging the work of her in her office to really dial into the workforce needs and shortages that we're seeing right now in Connecticut. The fourth group will be leveraging really our in-state think tanks like a social impact partners and their capacity to engage with our health systems and our employers across the state. So looking forward to engaging with their executive director, Mr. Mark Argosh, on what that support and work will look like. The next group will be innovation. And, we're lucky to have, Chancellor Chang, serving as a board member for Connecticut Innovations and looking at the both private and public synergy in that space in terms of innovations on the horizon. The sixth group will look at community and philanthropic opportunities and leveraging and working with our stakeholders in that space. And last but not least, really looking at national best practices. And a close colleague, an esteemed colleague of mine, serves as basically the chief, nursing leader in the state of Minnesota, but also serves as secretary of the National Nursing Workforce Co-op. So leveraging her national network to really bring to our attention the best national practices to our attention. So those are the 7 quote unquote stakeholders and groups. The work will be intense. We will leverage our colleagues across our system and our colleagues and partners externally. And I want to make it clear, in no way will this task force be trying to dictate the academic or programmatic portfolio at any of our 6 CSCU institutions. They have their own respective strategic plans and initiatives and their forms of academic governance, but we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive overview and an analysis of who we are as CSCU when it comes to healthcare. And I think we, as the largest public higher ed system in the state, I think we're second to no one in this, but how do we align it with both workforce, but obviously the healthcare challenges and disparities we're seeing in the state of Connecticut. So really looking forward to this work. I really appreciate the support and guidance and partnership with my fellow presidents, and we will ensure that there will be regular updates, not only to the board, but obviously to the Chancellor's office. So thank you.
Thank you, President Maduco. That's great. And, again, we do wonderful work at all of our institutions. Our faculty, first and foremost, are top-notch. They do an incredible job in the classroom, every single classroom. And in the space of healthcare, they are truly invaluable and they make an enormous impact. And so I think this work is going to create even more synergy. Another task force that has been developed or created by this board is and I'll probably mess up the name so Regent Yang can correct me, but it is to investigate online programs, online work, and potential synergies across the system. So I'd ask Regent Yang to just give us a brief update on the development of that group.
Thank you. So yes, the board charged us, or charged me with creating a task force to look specifically at our online Charter Oak college, as well as leverage online throughout our system. And I'm pleased to say that I have assembled, together with many of you all help, as specifically President Klinowski and his team, a great group of people that are ready to put their shoulders in, help us analyze the situation that we have. Obviously, workforce is a large component of this, but student success, the other very large component of this. Are we meeting the needs of our students to deliver academic excellence where they need it, where they want it? And I think the answer here is, we hope that the answer is that we can create a great investment case for both using Charter Oak as a degree granting institution and as leadership of online pedagogy and courseware throughout our system. Our first meeting is actually this Monday, but I will just quickly announce just some of the members here. So similar to Dr. Meduco, we have an approach of having faculty voices, leadership voices in our state, as well as employer voices. So we have Rick Levin, who is the former CEO of Coursera and also the former president of Yale, who knows just a little bit about this topic. We have, and vastly more than I ever will. And Matt McCooey, CEO of Connecticut Innovations, has graciously decided to spend his time here showing the importance of what we are doing here, and I look forward to that, both because his, well, maybe someone else doesn't look forward to that. Anyway, okay, well, I'll keep going until they tell us otherwise. Matt provides both a case of looking forward, as Connecticut Innovations is constantly looking forward, investing in the startups and the new technologies that are powering our state, as well as understanding fundamentally what the investment case would be, as he does every day as Connecticut's state VC. Maureen Hogan, professor from Charter Oak, also director of early childhood education, as both providing an input as a professor and faculty of Charter Oak, as well as in her area of expertise. Similarly, Bogdan Zamfir, professor from Southern, also director of their Center for Educational and Assistive Technology, and we will be looking at both of them to look very specifically at the quality and caliber of our programs as benchmarked against other peers who frankly are larger and have been attracting a lot of our students, and what can we do about that. And three people from faculty, Samantha Fisher, who runs the global education practice at Accenture, has graciously donated her time, or will be donating her time to this, as well as a lot of outside information, which will be invaluable for benchmarking this. We want this process to be both informed by experience, but also data-driven, so that we can make solid recommendations. And she's a great source for both of those things. Accenture is, of course, a large employer in their own right of Connecticut students. Bruce Saltis, VP from Travelers of HR and Emerging Talent, again, another large employer, I think the largest employer in our state. And again, will provide great information for us in the insurance space, as well as just an overall viewpoint of hiring Connecticut talent and online specifically. And Cindy Pugliese, who is the head of RevCycle at Hartford Healthcare. Again, healthcare, critical part of our workforce, critical part of everything that we do here. And again, the three of them to be able to provide insight into the demands of our largest employers, and more importantly, where they think that is going and how we can service those needs. Those of you who can count will notice that that is slightly more than I was tasked to do. So I have said that that is 7 members that are not on the board here, or ex officio. Myself and Ed Klinowski are also on that board, on this task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Yang, and again, great to see this kind of progress, right? We're moving, and it's great to go from meeting to meeting, and that's the goal, to have consistent updates so folks know that, I think Marty used the metaphor the other day. He said, you know, don't just tell folks when the plane has landed, tell them that it took off, check in on the status, right, and let people, and then of course we'll let you know when it lands. But it is important that people know that the work is happening, because it's good work, and it's inclusive work, and it's comprehensive work. So thank you, Regent Yang, for your leadership of that, and thank you, President Klinowski, as well, certainly. I promise I'm almost done with this update. I know it's a long one, so just bear with me for a few more. The biennium budget, we are going to be submitting that, obviously, for legislative session coming up soon. So first thing I want to do is I want to thank members of our Finance and Infrastructure Committee, led by Regent Rich Balducci, who has been a steward of this board and of that committee specifically for quite some time, and its members, Aaron Stewart, Regent Yang, Ted Yang, Ari Santiago. This committee, especially in the past year, has really been very scrupulous, very diligent in both analysis, firm in their guidance, and also, just basically saying, hey, we want you to keep pushing, and we want you to keep tightening and doing better and just getting better, right? That's all there is to it. Let's just continue to be positive and prepare us for positive change. So to that end, we are working with all of the presidents and the system office team to develop a biennium budget proposal that demonstrates our ability to serve our students first and foremost at a high level. Okay, that has to be first and foremost, everything we do, while being prudent and fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars, and still preparing us strategically to meet the needs of our state and our students now and into the future. So again, that work is happening. We're going to have more information and updates on that, but I'm very happy with the progress that we've made with those parameters and guidelines, and we'll continue to push that and make sure we're very clear in terms of where we are and where we're going. We're developing another group. It is, I don't think it has a name yet officially, but it's certainly for talent engagement, cultivation, and workforce for our students. And that will be leadership from across our system focused on that. The folks who are doing that work now, bringing them together. And again, as we see a model is developing, bringing as many stakeholder voices to the table as possible with as much engagement and transparency as possible. Regent Gway will be involved in that personally in certain spaces and certain times, so that is in development. So Regent Gway, thankfully, that does conclude my update, my remarks, and there's just so much positive going on, so much good going on. It starts with our faculty in the classrooms, our staff who do the great support and the service for our students. Grateful to all of our administrators, our institutional leaders, and this board, because you all do a lot of work, and I want to make sure that we recognize that. It is deeply appreciated. So thank you, Regent Gway.
Thank you, Chancellor Cheng, for very comprehensive remarks. We appreciate it. I'd like to thank all the faculty, staff, administrators, and all of our employees for their hard work and hospitality in making the start of our new academic year a good one for all of our students. I know there's a lot of effort that goes into getting courses ready, buildings clean, programs staffed, and expectations met. From what I've seen and what I've heard, mission accomplished. On behalf of the Board of Regents, thanks to you all again. Since our last meeting, our system leadership and our college and universities have been hard at work for our students. Chancellor Cheng has just updated you on a lot of these issues. The budget will be, as we know, there'll be no ARPA funds. So we need to be very clear, prudent, and realistic. And I'm confident with the leadership at the system and in our colleges and universities with this charge, along with Chair Balducci and his team, that we will strike the right moment to be that way. Second, I'd like to thank OPM for commissioning NCHEMS. You may not think that people appreciate it, but I certainly do. I think it's a way for us to get better. And when things are difficult, they're probably important things. That's what makes them difficult, so it's up to us to get them right. So thank you, Charlene, for representing OPM and Social Impact Partners. These are two draft reports that I'll be sharing with the Board of Regents after this meeting, even though they're in draft form. Third, I'd like to thank the task forces. President Maduco, when you work on this task force, I'll call you Dr. Maduco, and Regent Yang. We really appreciate your leadership. Scaling internally, collaborating externally is really important, and don't be afraid to work with what I call competitors. If we need to work with UConn or Trinity, or think of them as co-competitors. You know, we need other people to scale our system, and we need to open the door to our students, to the world. So thank you on the task forces. Expectations are high, and I know you'll overachieve those. As it relates to student services, President Maduco and Senate President L. Vandermark have updated myself and President Chang. I really like the collaboration that's going on with faculty and with leadership in this moment. In the last meeting, I set forth a few of these moments: task forces, ACT framework. Part of the rationale in doing this was to get better collaboration between faculty and our system. We don't have that muscle yet. We're going to build that muscle, and it's easier to build that muscle proactively on things that are important than reacting to problems. We have to do that too, and we have to do a better job. As I said in the last meeting, the culture has to shift. The culture will shift because it's the best way to gain student success. Last meeting, as my privilege as chair, I announced the creation of the Governance and Nomination Committee. Bylaws are being drafted, and the charter for the committee is in the final review. It's not here today. It'll be here for the next meeting, and we'll vote on them as a board at our next meeting in October. But before then, I'm announcing that I want the appointments to this governance committee to be Regent Juanita James, Regent Ira Bloom, and Regent Rick Porth. I think they have the experience, the déportement, and the mission understood to be terrific leaders in this moment. So I'm asking Juanita to open the BOR responsibilities document for input and revision when you're ready. Okay? To end my comments, I would like to recognize the contributions of Regent Jim McCarthy, Vice Chair of the BOR for another few short days. I joked with Jim that we really didn't have a meeting today. This was going to be a roast, but we actually do have a meeting. But I can speak of Jim's accomplishments, and I'd be here a while. Jim is very academically accomplished leader in the City University of New York, Suffolk University. He's served overseas in different places. He's served as a professor, and he served us really impressively on our Academic Affairs Committee, because at the end of the day, we work with faculty to deliver world-class content to our students, to make them better people and more prepared to be better engaged in our society. So Jim, you've been at the core of this, and we've recognized you as, you know, an amazing, I'll call you an academic. I think Dr. Toro opened that door for me in her earlier comments. But it's really you as a person that's more powerful and more potent and more great to work with. You're very gracious, you're very generous. You're a colleague that when we all look for a certain colleague to have in these types of moments, you become the profile. So I want to thank you for not only what you've done, but who you are, because you're a terrific person. And you know, we talked about searches, and we're going to find the best searches for these positions, as Chancellor Chang spoke about, and we look for skills, experience, and accomplishments. But it's really people and culture and personalities that make the world go round. So we need to solve for both. With you, we solve for that. I wish you weren't leaving. I know you are. I know your phone's going to be turned on. You'll have time with your grandchildren. So I would like to publicly give you a round of applause for what you've done for us. And the mic is live.
Thank you, Marty, and thank all of you. It's been an honor, a pleasure, and I have to say, and some of you have heard this already, I'll look at President Toro in particular. This was an obligation when the opportunity arrived, because I'm a first-generation college student. Most of the people in my family are first-generation college students, even of my generation. Generation college students who got this all started in our family, got it started in New Britain, Connecticut, at New Britain State Normal School. And I know from their stories that they went there because they couldn't afford to go anywhere else. And there weren't scholarship opportunities that they could secure. And both of them went on to have very strong careers in Waterbury, in the Department of Education in Waterbury. And so, as I'm going to paraphrase from one of the members of our family, when I asked him why he came so far to go to a wake of someone in the family, and this applies to why I had to say yes for this opportunity. And he said, "You've got to be kidding. I came because I knew if I didn't show up, I would be haunted for the rest of my days for shedding this opportunity to show my respect and to contribute." So it's the same for me. If the spirits of my aunts and one of our cousins who was superintendent of schools in Waterbury, if the spirits of my aunts were aware that I had this opportunity and turned it down, they would be haunting me for the rest of my days. So it was self-serving in that way, but also wonderful to get to know the system, not just as a resident, but a bit more from the inside, and to work with this fantastic group of trustees and supporters and faculty. So thank you all. Those words, Marty, mean a lot. Thanks.
If I may, as one of the newer members of the board, but certainly the newest to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, I would like to say how much I have learned from you, how much I've appreciated your thoughtfulness, your warmth, your genuine caring and integrity for this institution. What a pleasure it was. I look forward to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, and I will miss you a great deal, and your humor, as you can all see. So I wish you absolutely the best. I know your grandchildren will really enjoy your presence, and I just consider you to have made a deep impression on me in a very short period of time. So thank you, Jim.
Don't know that Juanita and I share a background. We're both Princeton graduates, so that
We won't hold
ties
that
in.
against you.
You can't hear me? Oh. You know, this is an outstanding board, and I think we have outstanding leadership, Marty, with you at the helm. But I used to sit next to Jim whenever the opportunity arose, and he helped make it, as a leader, an outstanding board even better. I learned from you something, believe it or not. I learned patience as being important, and calmness. I'm not sure it worked with me, by the way, but I've got it in the back of my mind to do something. But I think everybody in this room, especially the members of the board, find you as a kind of person that Juanita commented on, even-tempered, patient, and well-read, and when you speak, people pay attention, which is very important. I'm going to miss you, my friend, and I wish you the best as you move forward.
And thank you. And my request is, could I record that and send it to my children who have a different sense of my patience?
There's a point of clarification. The children will also haunt you. Thank you for the public comment. I know all of you will have some private comments after the meeting for Jim. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the last 3 meetings. And you may say, well, the last 3 meetings, Shouldn't we have done that last meeting? We had a July and an August meeting, which were special board meetings out of cycle, so we couldn't approve the June minutes until today, and then we have to approve the other 2 meetings' minutes. So we're going to go through a meeting approval process for 3 meetings. So I'd like to call a motion to approve the meetings from the June 27th regular board meeting. Is there a second? Are there any changes or corrections, any amendments? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The June 27 minutes are approved. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 31st special board meeting. As you may remember, these were for Title IX discussion and approvals. Any changes or corrections? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The meetings for the July 31st meeting are approved. I'd like to call a motion to approve the minutes from the August 28th special board meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The August 28th meetings are approved. Next, we have the approval of the consent agenda. I'd like to call a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Absolutely.
Thank you. A privilege, perhaps. I don't know the fancy words for these things, but I just want to highlight that in our consent agenda, which normally is, full of housekeeping, is the approval of the state's first public LPN program. And that's a huge deal that I'm sure Dr. Meduco could chime in on, but I won't necessarily put him on the spot. But people know that LPN is an entry to an incredibly lucrative career here in our state that Commissioner Valeris will say we desperately need. And this is a public program, which means it's eligible for funding and loans. And that is a huge game changer. So this is a big thing. I just want to make sure that we all just call that out there so that it's on the record and it's not just buried in the consent agenda. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chancellor Yang, for finding importance in the middle of protocol. I actually appreciate that because sometimes we go through things and we don't call out what's in the moment. So this is important, and this is why we're here. So thank you. I'd like to call a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. I'd like to turn it over to Chair of Academic and Student Affairs Committee, my colleague, Regent Ira Bloom.
Thank you, Chair Gay. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee met on September 6th. Present, in addition to the committee chair, were Regents Juanita James, Jim McCarthy, and Rick Porth, as well as Professor Sasanka. We thank the board for its approval of the consent agenda. Chair Gay, I would like to point out a few items of interest regarding the new programs just approved. First, the committee would like to acknowledge the extensive and collaborative work that the provosts, their deans, and the faculty have done in designing and presenting the new programs for board approval. A common theme running through these programs is that they are students-focused. From modality to keystone projects, internships, and course preference, these new programs are designed to attract and retain students, thus building enrollment and assisting the students in the completion of their degrees. Another theme we have seen regularly in our committee work is that these new programs are designed with Connecticut partnerships and workforce development in mind. For example, the first new program in the packet, which Regent Yang just spoke to, is Connecticut State's Licensed Practical Nursing Certificate Program, located in the Quinnipiac Valley, on the Quinnipiac Valley campus of Connecticut State, here in Willimantic, where we're meeting today. It will offer Connecticut's first and only post-secondary option for becoming a licensed practical nurse. And as Regent Yang pointed out, an entry point for the nursing profession. As a credit-bearing program, students will be eligible to apply for federal financial aid, a key point, at a tuition price point far lower than what is currently offered at other schools in the state. Practical nursing students, upon completion of the new program, will be prepared for positions for which there is high demand, and will also have a stackable credential with 13 college credits to transfer to any of the 6 associate degree nursing programs within the Connecticut state system, creating a ladder in the health professions field for these students. This is also an important program for the rural northeastern Connecticut, where we are, where it is particularly difficult to find trained nurses. Among other settings, PNs serve, practical nurses serve in long-term care facilities, physicians' offices, clinics, daycare centers, and schools. If the Chief Workforce Officer, Valerius, would like to make a few comments about this field, it would be appreciated.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. The Office of Workforce Strategy is extremely excited about this program. Currently, prior to this LPN program at CT State, there was only for-profit schools offering LPNs, high cost, no credits. The completion ratios out of those schools are not well at all, and those types of certifications lead to a dead end because there's not a stackable credential for those professionals to build on to get their RN. This is a foundational program for the needs of Connecticut, and making sure that we're building stackable programs that enable students to earn a credential and work and continue to go to school as they earn those additional credentials. And that ladder to an RN and above was desperately needed here in Connecticut. So we are extremely thankful for the time, effort, and consideration to put this program on the books back at CT State. We look forward to continuing to support this program and advocate for the growth of the program to other campuses across the state of Connecticut. So thank you very much for all of your hard work and dedication. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for your comments. The second new program comes from Southern and is a bachelor's degree program in behavioral neuroscience, and it will be the only such program offered by CSCU. Offering a degree in behavioral neuroscience is important because it bridges the gap between psychology and biology, providing students with a comprehensive understanding of the brain's role in behavior. This interdisciplinary program equips graduates with valuable skills applicable in several fields, including mental health, research, and pharmaceuticals, all important fields in the state of Connecticut, particularly considering the state's aging population, of which I am one, which brings with it increasing and very sad increase in residents with dementia in various forms. It will also serve as an excellent undergraduate course of study for students interested in attending medical school. As some of you may have noticed, the new television series, Brilliant Minds, featuring a neurologist as the hero, is a present-day TV successor to Ben Casey, which some of the old folks in the room will remember. Just this past week, there was a report that, by a statement by the former Green Bay Packers quarterback, Brett Favre, that he is suffering from Parkinson's disease. All of these circumstances reflect on the importance of the programs in behavioral neuroscience, which are keys to dealing with, to addressing some of the problems here. So, Chief Workforce Officer, you want any comments on this, if you wish?
Again, another great innovation. There is so much crossover between biology and mental health, and also how we learn. So learning is a function of our brain, and the more we understand that and the more we can articulate that to our students, the better foundational skills they'll have for lifelong learning. So innovative programs like this continue to be very valuable, so thank you.
I'd like to add one last item to my report. Also, at the last meeting of the committee voted to express its appreciation for Regent McCarthy's service on the ASA committee. As several people have already said, and I don't want to be overly redundant, but I do want to say it as chair of the ASA committee. Regent McCarthy's contributions to this committee were invaluable. I think all of us appreciated them, and I want to express my thanks on top of the thanks that others have expressed previously. And that concludes my report, Chairman Gay.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Our audit committee, I believe, Chair Elise Ray, we do not have a report this month, correct? Our Finance and Infrastructure Committee, Chair Balducci, I believe we do not have a report this month, correct? Correct. Human Resource and Administration Committee, Chair Japanen, I believe we do not have a report this month. Technology Committee, Chair Ted Yang, I believe we do not have a report this month. I'm going to move now to board development activities. We've embarked starting last December as a board to get better. We're called out in the MCHEMS report, so I appreciate the confirmation of my thoughts around this moment that we can develop better and organize better and execute better as a team. And to that end, we've contracted with the Association of Governing Bodies, AGB, to get better. So today we have two guests with us. Dr. Lisa Foss, Senior Director of U.S. Practice at Arizona State University. And Lisa has done a lot in this field and is going to help us in executive session just for the Board of Regents to get better. And Lisa, I'm going to offer it up to you to give some comments around the work that you expect to achieve. I didn't mean to put this in the back end of behavioral mental health, but that's the way it lined up. And Dr. Terry McTaggart, it may be more apropos to introduce you to as is our lead practitioner and consultant in this effort. And I know you spoke at the last BOR meeting at the end of August 28th. So I'll turn it over to you, and as you see fit to organize our thoughts around this.
As soon as we figure this, there we go. I have to hold it all the time. Okay, God, I can only use one hand then. Anyway, great to be with you, President Ismaili, members of the board, Regent Guay, Terrence, who left the room at the moment. It's great to be with you again. Let me just frame up what the chair described as this board development idea, and then focus in on the conversation today, if I could. If there's ever a bland title for an initiative, board development, it's probably somewhere near the top of the list. Let me provide, I think, a much more succinct and I hope understandable definition of why the board and its partners will be spending time on becoming, as the chair said, better, more effective in the past. And Regent McCarthy, I'm going to attribute this to you, and you'll discover that a lot of things are going to be attributed to you. Exactly, as time goes on. But I'm pretty sure it was Jim who said, you know, we've got a lot of strong members on this board, people that have served on other prestigious boards who are highly accomplished in their professions, who are just experienced human beings. Let's see if we can't engineer and design a board that is the equivalent of all the talent that's on here, and that harnesses that talent to be just truly exceptional governance leaders going forward. If we're successful with this effort, and I'll mention some of the key milestones we'll be seeking, you'll look at yourselves December, January, and say, yeah, we've come a long way. We've become the kind of highly effective, results-oriented, courageous group that the state and the governor intended us to be as fiduciaries for the people of Connecticut. So that's kind of the goal. Let me describe very briefly the process that we'll be pursuing between now and December, and then focus in on the conversation today, particularly with my friend and colleague, Lisa Foss. At the end of each board meeting going forward, today and then the next couple of months and into December, we'll take out time, 60 to 90 minutes or so, to focus on important topics that you as trustees and presidents, all of whom I've talked to about this topic as well, said these are things we need to get smarter about and be able to perform at a higher level. So the focus today is on your North Star goal, right? Student success. How can you make a difference there? You don't stand in front of them in a classroom, you don't guide them in a laboratory. What is the job, if you will, of the board in moving the needle measurably, dramatically on student success? That would actually be the topic Lisa will present on and invite your conversation about. At the end of next month, will be the overriding topic. We'll have, again, one of those academic bureaucratic names, board engagement. Okay. Let's redefine that as what do we do? What do we stop doing? How do we do it better? How do we, whether it's visiting a campus, serving on a committee, on a special task force, interacting with your chancellor, whatever it may be, how do we just perform at a higher level? And to fall into an athletic analogy, we want to be the winning team who doesn't make mistakes, or if they do, recovers from them quickly. Board engagement, okay? And the third major topic in November will be shared governance. Another hollowed academic phrase, but it really means making decisions in partnership with a host of other constituencies. Certainly the faculty is part of that. Certainly the presidents are part of that. Also, frankly, outside the walls of the university, the people of Connecticut, politicians, policymakers, think tanks. You are the ultimate governing authority within the system. The Board of Regents is. But you also all know that there are other important players who surround the system, whose interests, objectives, and goals need to be taken into account, harmonized, supportive, et cetera. So shared governance is a much trickier and more complicated endeavor than is sometimes suspected. So those three things, you may choose to have a retreat at the end of all of this sometime in December, as you have in the past, to kind of encapsulate it and say, how are we doing? How far have we come? What do we need to do next? But we'll report back to you on that at a later time. So fast forward to right now. Three parts of this presentation / conversation. I'll introduce my friend Lisa a little more detail in a moment, but let me just mention the three at this point. And so the first is Lisa's, and the second is a conversation with the board led by Regent Porth, who was instrumental in generating the statement that you've all been sent on board roles and responsibilities. And Regent Porth would ask me to emphasize this is a working draft, and it's probably going to be a working draft at least till the end of the year. And frankly, in this case, the process of reading it, thinking about it, critiquing it, coming up with alternatives is probably more important than the document itself. But it's a step toward that sort of cohesion around common goals and common behaviors that are the mark of a mature, effective board. So you'll be helping Regent Porth if you tell them ways that that document can be stronger, rather than just saying attaboy. The third topic for our conversation comes from from Regent James, who's been called upon to do a lot of things. And we've titled that one, "What Should We Do If?" And that gives the board an opportunity to tee up things that demand your attention, your participation before they occur. Okay. What should we do if X occurs? Many of those you're kind of aware that they're out there somewhere, and they may surprise you. That's the opportunity. This is the opportunity to say, well, what are some of those things that we better anticipate and be prepared to deal with? What would we do if? Some of them may affect individual board members on a campus visit, for example. Others will be collective. So those are sort of the three general topics today. Now, why Lisa Foss? And what will she be presenting on? Lisa, let me just give her a professional background a little bit, which is highly relevant to this system. Lisa has a PhD in policy from the University of Minnesota. She also has a Master's of Business Administration from one of Minnesota State's universities, St. Cloud State University. I happen to have a degree from that institution as well. Why is this relevant? Minnesota State, as it's called, used to be called Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, about 25 years ago, embarked on the journey that you've been on for, what, a dozen years, I would say. Okay. And the origin was very similar. Tough-minded governor here, an equally tough-minded Senate president in Minnesota. And a lot of Sturm and Drang and opposition to it, just as you faced. Minnesota has hit, and Lori Lamb, your HR administrator, knows this as well because she comes from there. They have moved from a troubled, disjointed, and frankly, much criticized enterprise to a mature, high-functioning system that's about as complex as yours. Okay, I've gotten my notes somewhere. There's something like 54 campuses in Minnesota. The system is comprised of what are the technical colleges, the community colleges, and 7 universities, 270,000 students. Okay, fourth largest system of this nature in the country. So we can learn from some of their mistakes, but we can particularly learn from what Lisa has developed as to how a board functions at a high level in that kind of incredibly complicated educational, bureaucratic, political environment to move the needle on student success. So that's why we're doing this, and I think you'll walk away from it, as I know I will, very appreciative of her work. Dr. Foss.
Hopefully I can live up to that introduction. So holding the button the whole time, that's going to be fun. So thank you all for having me join you today. I want to say it was a pleasure and a privilege to hear the first part of the board meeting. Congratulations on really tremendous work. And it's like you read my presentation, because the alignment around engagement and innovation and alignment across the system are some things that I'm going to be talking about. So great work, all of you. It was really a privilege, so thank you for that. I also want to say my role right now in this moment is as the Senior Director for U.S. Practice with the University Design Institute at Arizona State. I started that role about 3 months ago. I'm speaking to you today really from the grounding of what Terry shared with you, but even more importantly, in the last 3 years I spent with the Association of Governing Boards as the ambassador to their Council for Student Success. And what that group was a group of board chairs, academic affairs committee chairs from systems and institutions across the country that AGB identified and selected and brought together as a council to guide them on board governance and student success. So I had the opportunity to spend 3 years with this council of about 25 individuals who have both expertise in board governance. They serve as board chairs, they serve as academic affairs committee chairs, and the like, and then also professionals in the student success space. And so I facilitated a series of conversations with them about how do boards support and impact student success at their institution. What is the role of governance and what is the role of boards? And so what I'm going to share with you today is really grows out of that opportunity to spend that amount of time with board leaders from institutions and systems that are really focused in this space. And so I'm going to, do I have a clicker or how do I advance? Oh, just raise my hand. All right. So I wanted to start with this statement, which is around governing for student success. And it comes from Eckel and Trower, and I think it's a really important idea, and it really grounds the kinds of things I'm going to talk about. So I'll read it to you and then highlight what I think is important. So boards are uniquely positioned to advance change in ways that other institutional stakeholders cannot. Boards aren't management. Boards themselves do not advance campus initiatives or student success initiatives. Your presidents do, your faculty do. But instead, they can illuminate context, they can assure attention to issues, hold institutions accountable for progress, and contribute their resources, insight, and wisdom. And so when you think about board responsibility for student success, the kinds of things that I'm talking about, the kinds of things that we talked about within the Council for Student Success are really grounded in that kind of accountability, context, and elevating what's important. Next slide. So there's tremendous resources out there. I've actually have links to 3 different documents that if you are interested in digging deep into board governance and student success, they're at the end of the slide. There's some links, and I would encourage you to review them. Some are from AGB and other sources. Tremendous resources, lots of good thinking and guidance. What I've done is distilled it both from those resources, but also my experience in talking with really effective board chairs and really effective board members as they've thought about empowering their institutions and their systems around student success. And I've distilled it down to 4 areas that I think are important for boards to keep in front of them at all time, across all of your work, across all of your committees. And the first you've already touched on, alignment. The role of the board is to really ask hard questions around alignment, around your missions, your strategies, your budgets, your policies. How do they connect, and what is the string through that allows you to really elevate student success outcomes and push toward better resources and services and outcomes for your students? The second is about data. What are you paying attention to? From within the institutions, from without the institutions? Who are your students? Who are your students now? Who are your students in the future? What kinds of programs and support do they need? How will they be changing over time? And are there discrepancies in the kinds of outcomes among your student populations that you really need to pay attention to? Innovation. I loved hearing the word innovation. And what do boards need to do to support their leaders, their transformational leaders who are trying to push their institutions and their system around new and innovative practices related to student success and others? How do you provide support for that kind of leadership? And then how does the board itself hold itself accountable? What is its learning plan? Terry just talked about your learning plan for the future. What's your committee structure? How do you build student success into the work that you do? Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about alignment first, and that's really about embedding student success in your mission, in your strategic plan, and then how are you actively and regularly aligning your policies and budget to deliver on those results. Each of these slides, I've elevated a handful of questions that you might keep in front of you. There are likely others that really, as you debate and discuss the work that you do over the course of the year, that you might want to ask yourself. So things like, how might the mission and strategic plan for the system in your institutions need to be adapted to align with the students you have and the students that you may have in the future. What data and financial analysis has been completed or needs to be completed to understand the student success and financial impact of existing policies that are living in your current state? What is the true cost of a student not returning? What is the financial implication for student success or outcomes that are lower than you were hoping for? And use that to inform your kinds of investment. And do all students benefit equally from the current practices? Are there students that have beneficial treatment because of historic practices, or are there some student populations that are being disadvantaged by those policies and actions, and how might you change them? Those are the kinds of questions boards should be asking as you drive your investments, as you drive your policy reviews, as you drive your governance. So a couple of examples. Minnesota State, which is a system, a comprehensive system that Terry mentioned already, did a board-driven exercise. It's actually how Terry and I got to know each other. Did a board-driven exercise in 2019 around just a series of these questions and others about how the board is supporting and empowering its campuses, its presidents, its leaders around success as a system, especially grounded in student success. Out of that work came an initiative called Equity 2030, and it is a board-level, system-level strategy document that provides the kind of guidance to its system, its institutions around student success. It's focused on building leadership, building culture, policy review, investment strategies to improve outcomes, and outcomes for all students. I've provided a link to their website if you want to dig into that a little further. Another example is Northern Kentucky University. Their board chair sat on the Council for Student Success, so you'll see a couple of examples from them because they, as a board and institutional leaders, really focused on student success. So they built their entire strategic plan around student success for the institution, supported by the board. Success by Design is the name of the plan, and it really is focused on student success. Institutions, universities in particular, are really pressed to have a number of North Stars, prestige being one of them, research being others. That's not always right for all institutions. And so they grounded their strategic plan and their board focus around what they thought Northern Kentucky University, which is really a comprehensive institution, really needed to focus on, which was student success. So they had the courage to say, this is who we are, this is what our students need, and we're going to put student success at the center of everything that we do. I've, again, provided a link to their site so you can learn more. Next slide, please. So the second area that I invite you to think about and keep in front of you at all times is data, and the power of data to really elevate who your students are, to help you define what does student success mean for your system. It may mean different things for different institutions or your system overall. Minnesota State elevated up as a system and a board to say equity. That's in fact how they're going to define success for a system. That may not be true for all systems, but they grounded it based on who their students were and who they need to serve and their responsibilities to the state of Minnesota. And then use that definition of student success to monitor progress and hold people accountable. And so some questions you might want to consider and to keep in front of you is demographic shifts and changes. What do you know about your state? What do you know about your student populations and how those demographics are shifting over time? And how are they performing by demographic group? Do your student success measures capture multiple definitions? We tend to think about retention and completion, very, very important student metrics. But what are the student success metrics as an institution or as a system? And especially as they're tied to societal impact. Workforce needs of the state is a really important one, for example. And so how do your student success metrics really connect with the needs of both your students, your institution, and your state? Is your data disaggregated in ways that you can tell and understand gaps in performance and outcomes? Are you asking critical questions about the success of all your student populations? And what kinds of investments need to be made in order to advance and improve those outcomes? And then how are you holding your CEOs accountable? sorry, Chancellor and presidents. How is accountability for the performance connected to your leaders? And their accountability and their compensation, or whatever your HR strategies are. How do you connect those together so that you communicate accountability? So a couple of quick examples. So Northern Kentucky, again, they have all of the traditional student success metrics, but they also understand that finance and cost is a really important component of their student success. And so they track unmet financial need, and they have metrics and goals and targets around reducing that to improve outcomes across student populations. They have metrics related to postgraduate employment, and then they also have metrics related to student experience, like high impact practices, because that has been part of their strategic plan, and the board is now holding that institution accountable for delivering on that component, the academic experience and the belonging experience of their students. So aligning those together. Another example that I'll share with you is the University of Alaska and their commitment to Alaska Native students. And so it was a board priority that they develop a very particular plan that delivers on the success of that student population, because there was such a difference in success. And so they developed a strategy and a plan, and the link that I've provided to you is the report to the board on their progress, because that is being held up by the board as a critical component of the role of the University of Alaska. And again, their leadership and their institutions are being held accountable to deliver on that. The next slide. I would invite you to think about innovation and how do you support it? How do you create a climate where innovation and experimentation around improving student outcomes is part of how you engage your transformational and support your transformational leaders? So a few questions for you to consider. How are you supporting your transformational leaders, your presidents, your chancellor, as they're engaging in some difficult conversations? They're challenging their institutions, their faculty, to think different about curriculum, to think different about student support, new types of programs that may be outside of your current portfolio that really are responding to the needs of the state. Changing practices around student support within the institutions. Those sometimes can be complicated. They can be challenging. And so leaders need support in order to do that. Support as we have your back, and we're going to support you in as you navigate those spaces. Support as an investment. One of the things that's true, and I have Arizona State University up as one of the examples, they have a very clear charter that includes a strong statement on student success. And I'm going to read it because I think it's really powerful. And it is, I should clarify, their charter is their version of their mission. Their charter is their mission statement. Their mission statement is, ASU is a comprehensive public research university measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed. That's their charter, that's their mission. And so over the last 15 years or so, they have experimented in ways around new types of organizational structures. They've created new schools, they've collapsed programs, they've done a lot of organizational change, they've invested in technology and developed partnerships with major employers, with technology companies. They've tried a lot of stuff. And if you talk to the folks at their institution, a lot of it failed. They went online 3 times. All were abject failures. They were failures. The board backed the president. They lost money, they backed the president, because they had this charter that was moving them in the direction that they needed to go. They gave resources and approved budgets that allowed them to do that. They're at this point have a first in the nation relationship with Dreamscape around immersive learning technologies. They have a first in the world relationship with Google around their own AI system that they can run their research and student support around. They got that today because 15 years ago their board said, we're going to allow you to try some things and we're going to allow you to fail and learn from that failure and get better. So that's a really critical point for a board, is how do you create that environment, that climate that allows your leaders to have that level of experimentation because you got to try things, because the student population is changing. Student success means moving at the speed of the student and their needs and their resources and the kinds of ways they want to learn, not the ways that we all learned a few years ago. I will say that environment is different and it's challenging and it's going to require some innovation, and our faculty are very, very innovative people and they want to try things, and we have to figure out how do you resource them and support them. I will point to, again, to Minnesota State and Equity 2030. One of the things they're engaged with this year that I'm working with them on is a design accelerator. So through Equity 2030, one of the areas they identified as a board and as a system, that transfer is in fact one of their biggest problems. They lose about 70% of the students that enter through their community colleges don't make it into their universities, even though they indicate that transfer is part of their goal. And so they've engaged the University Design Institute in something called the Design Accelerator, so that though we have 3 universities who are right in the middle of designing and experimenting around new models, they're probably going to fail. They're probably not going to work the first time. We're doing rapid prototyping and ideation, and we're going to try some things. And the board says, yes, we're going to try some things, and we're not going to expect return on investment right away, and we're not going to expect it to work perfectly. But what we're going to expect is that you try and that you learn and that you get better. So innovation. Last slide. And then the fourth area that I want to highlight and invite you to think about is you yourself as a board. How do you act? How do you organize? What do you do? So some questions. How are you organizing yourself to infuse student success throughout all of the work that your board does? What are your own learning development goals relating to student success? How do you keep learning? How do you become a learning organization as a board that is constantly seeking out new ideas, best practices, and ways that you can support your institutions? How do you review yourselves as a board and hold yourself accountable for student success outcomes? And what does that look like? And then how do you in an ongoing way demonstrate your commitment to delivering on those outcomes? So it's board accountability. And I've offered up 3 examples, and these are all from the Council on Student Success, who've really focused on this area. University of Central Florida has a very strong commitment around student success and data. And one of the things that they did was they rechartered their academic programs committee to become the Academic Excellence and Student Success Committee. I have a link to their new charter in this deck, but they've expanded what does it mean for students to be successful. They really focused it originally around that kind of program approval, and they've recognized that student success means more than just strong academic programs. Of course, it includes that, don't get me wrong, but there are other things that need to be considered as well, so that that committee really changed it, the board changed its charter for that committee to really pay attention. The second is Hollins University. They did a similar thing. They combined their academic and student affairs committee. They had separate committees. They created their committee on student success, well-being, and belonging, again, to have the board really be engaged in a way that is about the whole student, the holistic success of the student. And then the third board I will hold up is Northern Kentucky. They are a small board. They're smaller than this. They have 8 members. And so their reality was they don't actually work with communities very much. They have an audit committee because they have to. But as the board chair said, if we had a bunch of committees, we'd all serve on the same committees together, and then we'd meet as a full board. But what they do is they intentionally build their board agendas so that student success is a standing component of every single one of their committees. And how does audit contribute to student success? How does the finance committee contribute to student success, et cetera? So they've really changed how they run their boards and their committees. Next slide, please. So I mentioned a few resources. These are hot links to them, and I've shared this deck obviously with Pam, so she can download these and share these with you. They're from different sources. The first one's from the Association of Governing Boards and really dives deep into the different components of board governance and how they interact with student success. The second is from the Aspen Institute, who did a study in California and really looked at how boards can advance student success and equity. And the third is a compilation of material by the Chronicle of Higher Education that, again, really looks at proactive boards and how they can help further student success. So I would encourage you to review those resources in addition to this conversation. And the final slide. So I hope I laid out, my goal, what Terry asked me to do, is really to lay out some ideas to challenge maybe some challenging questions there so that we can have a fruitful conversation going forward. So thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to Terry.
I think I'll turn it over to the board. What do you think? What are your responses? How far along are you? And particularly with attention to those questions that Lisa posed, and to making this real and not just a kind of noble conversation about how much we love students. Fire away. Regent Porth.
I appreciate the presentation you just made. Thank you. And because I think it lays out in an accessible, understandable way some concrete steps we can do. And also, the other thing I want to say is that I think that the extra time we'll spend over the next 3 or 4 months with Terry seems to coalesce or align with what you're talking about, which makes me really hopeful that we can do some good work together over the next couple months, consistent with what you just presented. Thanks.
Thank you. Regent McCarthy.
Yeah, I vowed I wouldn't say anything at this meeting, but, you know, what can I say? I just want to say that one of the things that has impressed me about the collectivity of this discussion, Marty, I don't know whether it starts with you, but the first thing I read was from you, where you made it very clear that student success was the focus of everything we do. And Lisa and Terry, you made it very clear that in a very formal way, your examples of very successful boards have been those that focused entirely on student success. I forget the example, but I've got it written down somewhere. Lisa, you referred to a place that had student success as its single North Star. And student success later, you talked about it as a topic of every board committee. And I think putting all these together, this is an incredibly powerful approach to take. And then I'm trying to scope the room to see who I might offend by this, but what the heck. So let's be real. It's my last meeting. What do I care? Let's be real clear about this. We're very pleased and happy about our colleagues in public education in the state about what seem to be unending series of national basketball championships for men and women. Okay, great, wonderful accomplishment. For our institutions, we don't care. It's not the single North Star. I don't think it ever will be. So let's just say it. Maybe in more polite words, but that single North Star idea, I think, is incredibly powerful.
So exactly. I think they're coming from I spent 25 years at a regional comprehensive institution, and the pressure on regionals to be all things, right? That research, service, athletics, academics, community impact is challenging. There's an identity that's tied up in that. And as resources get tighter, as priorities, especially as you think about regional universities and their commitment, and community colleges and their responsibility to the larger state, the employment and requirements, what kind of partnerships they form to advance the talent and economic development of the state. Some of those things have to go. I carry a suitcase and I'm from more than 90 miles away, so I can say things like this. Some of those things have to go, and that's really an important part of the board, right? Is to really set that clarity and say, it's great that you want to invest in that, but that's not who we are. I will say, and I will not name the institution, but there was an institution within the Minnesota state system who went to the board and said, we no longer want to be a regional comprehensive, we want to be a Research One institution. And the board said, absolutely not. Nope, they put together a beautiful presentation and they laid out the argument very strongly, and the board said, that is not who we are. They said no. And it was controversial, but it took courage, right? But it is that clarity of mission, is what is your role? What is the purpose of what is the mission and purpose? And so, absolutely. And that's a place for boards to really be courageous.
And the other thing about this, there was a New York Times article this week about a student, former student at one of the elite institutions in the country, saying that the institution needs to change for this, this, and this. And it was, you know, they focus too much on getting people into the best business schools and getting people into finance and getting people into the top 1%. With our colleagues across the table from Workforce and Office of Management and Budget, those aren't things that the Connecticut state colleges and university systems ought to be focusing on. We're not focusing on the top 1%. There's a famous article, and I love it because I can always find it, and I tried to find it this week, and it's got a title in it. And the title of the article is "Shut Up About Harvard." If you want to talk about higher education for the country of the United States, shut up about Harvard. Doesn't. And that's what I like.
Spoken like a true Princeton grad.
So I love it. But I will point out, it also, when student success becomes your North Star, it also opens up who do you need to be partnering with, and what does student success mean in a larger context? Yes, your institution, yes, your system, but student success actually has a larger purpose and definition. So one of the things that Arizona State did is, because of their charter, they have taken admission criteria and said that's stupid. Sorry, they said it more eloquently than that. But they have built an enterprise in which any qualified student is automatically admitted, and those that are not qualified, they have built programs to get them in. So they have free courses that if the student does not meet their qualifications, they can take these courses for free, and they only pay for the course after the student successfully completes it, and what they pay is $400. And then that gets them the qualification to get into the institution. The other thing that they do is they've opened 9 charter schools in the state of Arizona, because they have a responsibility to, they are a Hispanic serving institution. They also have a responsibility to the native populations in Arizona, which have abysmal record of moving into higher education. And so they've placed those charter schools in those areas to prepare at a high school level so that those students have an ability to enter into not only Arizona State, they don't have to go to Arizona State, right? They can go to the University of Arizona, they can go to Northern Arizona, they can go wherever they want. But they see it as part of their mission. If it's about student success, it's beyond the classroom and the institution. It's really looking beyond to say, who do we need to partner with? How do we build the flows into the institution? How do we make sure all of our students have an opportunity to be successful, even those that don't meet our admission criteria? We have a responsibility to them. And so, but again, that's an institution that's sort of mature on this work. But it's a demonstration of what, when you think about and you make student success your North Star, it opens up a whole series of different questions and different partnerships and different ways of thinking about your responsibility to your students. So.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to add the president's.
My comment will not be very long, but What is also very striking about this is that normally, and so often, when we talk about transforming systems, the board thinks that it is the management and the administration's role to make that happen. And what I'm hearing in each of these examples is what type of commitment it makes from the board contribution to be a part of that transformation and to really pursue that North Star. So it's the pursuit of lifelong learning and continually educating ourselves about best practices and what's happening in the higher ed industry and sector. It's the commitment, it's both the intellectual, financial, time, and personal emotional commitment to do this work that we have to do it together. And that's a tall order. And I'm really excited about exploring from our standpoint how we can do this better in looking at the future of where we want to take the system.
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, can we broaden this to include the presidents as well in this conversation?
Of course.
Okay, and is President Mondu interested in commenting? I see his image before us.
Yeah, I am. Good afternoon, good morning, and great presentation. As a former provost that came out of the Minnesota state system, I was there at the launch of Equity 2030, and it was made clearly by their board of trustees and their chancellor when it came to the North Star being centered around equity and student success. That was not negotiable. So every strategy, how we budgeted, how we collaborated, if it lacked student success and equity, it wasn't going to move forward, right? So really, I think here in Connecticut, here in higher education, we know what the equity gap is. We know the disparities between marginalized and historically unsupported groups and communities. And I think we have a responsibility as a system, right, to really come together. So it's really great to hear that. And I think doing everything that we can through an equity lens and getting out of the colorblind business is something that we have to do as not only as a system, but obviously as member institutions. So again, really appreciate your sentiments and what you shared today.
During Lisa's presentation, I noticed a number of facial reactions from the president as well as others. I'm wondering if President Toro would be willing to comment here, and any of your colleagues that care to step up.
Well, thank you, Terry. And I really enjoyed the presentation. Let me say that I am very familiar with what Arizona State University have done, because many, many years ago, when we started the transformation of Wichita State, we visited Arizona State and learned about experimenting and failing, and that's what we started doing at Wichita State. And if you look how far Wichita State have come, we started there. The other thing, when I moved to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, we went to Arizona State, and from that visit, we developed a partnership, and at the time I left that institution, we have a charter high school. So those practices, I can say, definitely work, but more applicable to today and this system. I welcome a highly functional board, a board that keep all of us, the leaders of the institutions, accountable for student success, because at Central, we have a collective goal, and the collective goal is to make Central student success center institution and a financial stable institution. And that is what we talk about time and again. But with the support of the board, then we will have even more motivation. But in addition to that, as president and leaders of the universities, we will have support to make the difficult decisions that are going to be required for us to become that system. Finally, innovation and recognizing those institutions that are innovating and honestly not penalizing them for failing, on the contrary.
Thank you for the comments. I want to elevate something that I think is really important, that systems in particular have an opportunity to do around innovation. Individual institutions are doing tremendous things. They're creative, they're solving problems. How does the system and how does the board look at scaling what is working from one institution to another? There's a real opportunity for institutions to be innovation, or for systems to be innovation hubs, that you use the experiments that are happening at your institutions, learning from them, adapting them, and scaling them so that promising practice become best practices across the system. So I just want to highlight that because I've never seen an institution that isn't said, we really are working hard for our students, right? That is their faculty, their staff, believe in their students, they want to make sure they're successful. I think the opportunities that systems uniquely have, and it's why UDI, University Design Institute, is particularly interested in working with systems, is because they have such an opportunity to scale those innovative practices and impact more and more students. So thank you for your comments.
I'm very respectful of time, and I'd like to recognize two more people to speak. I'd like to go to President Smith and then Professor Sasanker to bring us home. If there's anybody else who'd like to speak, let me know, but I think we're going to get some great comments here.
Thank you, Chair. This was a very informative and actually exciting presentation. I took some copious notes. Equity, that's the buzzword. And I like to think of it a little bit differently. So what does equity mean? It means access, and then it means completion. So when all of our scholars come to Southern, their expectation is that they're first generation, low wealth, they expect to graduate and have a fair chance in life. And so we have to understand that. What does it take to educate a scholar that comes to Southern, for example, or those in the system, when our population is 52% students of color, 50% first generation, and over 55% Pell eligible? It's not just about the equity piece, it's about affordability. It's about a whole lot of other things I think that's necessary for us to be successful. And we have a different outcome because of the challenge and opportunity in educating those type of scholars. And I want to end on this. We are a comprehensive institution. I've been doing this for over 40 years. And I always believe that students that attend CSCU, they have the right to have the same type of experiences as any other system. We may not have a national championship in basketball, but they deserve to have a basketball team. They deserve to be able to study abroad. They deserve to have undergraduate research experiences. So when we talk about strengthening our system, we need to understand that equity comes in all types of forms, but first and foremost, our students deserve the best education and best experiences that we can offer. Thank you.
Thank you, President.
So I think we had sort of the same thing stand out to us, because I'm also just want to follow up on the equity piece. You know, so many words, they hang around long enough and they can be subject to so much misuse that they end up obscuring more than they reveal, right? So, you know, we've been talking here and there about equity around this table for quite a few years, but it has not always been clear whether or not the things that we enact in the name of equity, in fact, do that. So I really do want to encourage us to have a really detailed conversation about the state of things and the actual material conditions that would enact equitable outcomes. You know, you talk about access and completion. Those are indicators of the extent to which there is an equitable state, right? They are not, in fact, the actual product. And if we just shove students through and give them a credential, we are not serving them, right? So I just want to, point out that we live in one of the most, in terms of economically inequitable states in the country, especially in terms of education, racially inequitable states in the country. We have more school districts than we do towns, because that is the way that we enact certain kinds of educational segregation historically in the state, and that we have to look very specifically at the sorts of things. And I hope that in-depth conversation can be had here, because at the moment, the thing that we wrestle with, notice that even within our system, we have community colleges, we have state universities, and it is the community colleges that are, or the community college, sorry, I've been around a while, it's gonna take a while, the community college segment of our system that is struggling with the greatest budget issue. And we've done a lot to restructure ourselves over the past few years with a mandate on saving money, but with a student body that is from the segment of the population that has been least invested in historically and even now. So our state budget, as we struggle to figure out how we're going to fund even these restorations of services in the long term, as we struggle to think about that, we have to deal with the racial, the economic, and the generational inequities in the state, right? We're focusing on pension liabilities while we educate students who will never have a career that will afford them such an opportunity. So, this LPN program, I think, is a great win for equity. And I love the way that you laid it out, because there were so many students in a dead end. So many people have been anticipating this. I hope it grows well. And I think there's so many other opportunities to think about those pathways in terms of Connecticut. So sorry, that was very long-winded as usual, but I do hope we will have that conversation in depth. Yeah.
You have my commitment to have that conversation. I think we've gone through all the formal part of the agenda. I'd like to thank Dr. Kelly Valieres, who's a friend. I've been a colleague for 6 years, who has a PhD in education, has run a couple of manufacturing companies, now our chief workforce officer, but committed to us, and we don't take that lightly, so thanks for being here, Kelly. I'd like to thank Dr. Toro for stepping in and stepping up. It's the old adage, when you have a lot to do, we give it to you, because you're busy, but we appreciate your wisdom and your leadership. And Dr. Ismaili, as host, there's a lot of excited people on campus, so we have high expectations of you too, and we'll hold you accountable to those, but hold us accountable to help you help our students. With that, before I call a motion to move to executive session, let me state that the voting members of the Board of Regent will move to executive session for the purposes of discussing items covered in Connecticut General Statute 1-201B. No votes will be taken in executive session. Additionally, there will be no discussion, action, or votes by the board following executive session. The only action following executive session will be a declaration of adjournment by the chair. Attending an executive session, you'll be asked to join the regents will be Chancellor Chang, President Toro, President Klonowski, Mike Moriarty, Jessica Paquette, Tony Anello, Lori Lamb, Adam Joseph, Vita Litvin, Chris Engler, Board Secretary Pam Helene, Dr. Terry McTaggart, Dr. Lisa Foss, and Charlene Casiamento. Therefore, allow me to call a motion to move to executive session for the purposes I have described above. May I have a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The live streaming has been paused. And I would prefer a